So I went on a painting vacation to an area in England near York. And my friend took me to Linton Lock Marina. She's an excellent painter and a tutor. She lives near York. So we went to Linton Lock Marina, which is northwest of York, and it's where the River Ouse passes by. And there's a difference in the terrain, so that's why they have the locks for the small narrow boats. It's a really nice area. You can see the water. It's a still water, even though it's the river, but because of the locks, there's a control on the river current of the river. And being York, even in the August time frame, it can be very rainy and cold. So you never know exactly how the weather is going to be, which is what happened to my friend and I. Once we had set up the easels, sure enough, it started raining. We went to the tea house, and after the rain stopped, we went back out to paint. So there were two very nice boats that I could see in the Linton Locks. And as you can see, I chose this particular view. And first thing you need to do is the composition and try to, define what are you going to leave out of the painting. And that's why the thumbnail sketch is very, very useful. So first go for the large shapes, understand what is the composition, what attracted your attention when you first saw it, and put it in the composition. This is not really a note and a value sketch, but it's basically just to place the shapes. It was a rather simple image. So basically make sure that I position the boats where I wanted them and the reflections. I thought, the most important thing about this painting was the reflections. And the large mass on the left was the reflections of the trees. And I saw that kind of diamond shape, which I liked on the trees reflected in the water. The pier allows you to start with the perspective. It's a line perspective of what you are seeing. Of course, this painting has also the element of atmospheric perspective, which is given by the value, the tone, and the colors used in the actual painting. For the painting, I used acrylic golden paints. Basically, very limited color palette was Indian yellow, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue. I did use phthalo blue. I like that when I'm painting water and especially on the river. It gives a very nice tone. Of course, you could mix your ultramarine blue with different amounts of the Indian yellow and white and get to something very similar. But phthalo blue is already there out of the tube, and it saves a little bit of time when you're painting plein air. And of course, titanium white. So on a first block in stage, it was a rather quick block in. I started with it's very transparent darks because the alizarin crimson and the ultramarine blue can give you with plenty of water to dilute. I know some people actually don't recommend water, but the sort of fluid medium, but I was using water. So just block in very quickly where the darks were, and that was like the first thing I did, position the trees and the reflection of the trees. Make sure that the back tree line was already a higher value, and also using the blues with the alizarin crimson and very little Indian yellow in the back with plenty of titanium white pushes that tree line to the back. For the sky and the reflections of the water was the lighter values, but I did realize because it was after the rain and it was a cloudy day that the lightest light was actually on the top of that boat. So just make sure that you place also after doing your darkest darks, make sure that your lightest lights are also placed throughout the painting. I don't think I used any pure white in this painting. There's a little bit of Indian yellow with this white. So that's sort of the block-in stage, first stage of the painting where everything is positioned. Now on a second stage, I did use negative painting to shape the trees better, you can actually see the brush strokes. So you use the sky color or the color of the back of the trees in the light purplish color to create the image or sensation of the trees. The fun part, this was really nice, was to open up that diamond shape that I had seen from the beginning that attracted me so much on the reflections, which in the beginning you just put everything is dark, but then you use impasto on top of the dark reflections to open up those little places. And I actually used a size 4 flat and also a size 4 filbert for the whole painting. It was done with very limited palette and limited brushes. It's just use the corner to open up those spaces. And it was really fun to open them up and create that sensation of the depth of the trees and also how they are reflecting on the water. Using the same kind of mixture, I also just brushstrokes very light on top of some of the dark shapes to give the sensation of the water. So darker, more impasto type to open up for the reflection. But for the actual running water, it's lighter brush strokes using the same sort of mixture. In the tree mass, I realized it was very, very flat originally, which is what I left on the reflection, the very flat, just dark color, which is very predominantly Alizarin Crimson, Ultramarine Blue. I did use a little bit of the Indian yellow, but in the reflections you do not see the sort of more depth that I did add on the masses of the trees, where I wanted to use very close value range, closer to that dark tone, but sort of shaping a little bit nondescript trees and leaves in there. And I also did a little bit of the high value tone contrast in the very back, giving it a little bit more of an idea of either tree trunks, as you can see, little vertical things in there, with some of the tree shapes in there. I also shaped a little bit the reflections of the boats from what I was seeing, so that it would be more in what reflecting what I was actually seeing from the reflections on the boats. On a next step, I wanted to work a bit more on the atmospheric perspective of the pier and making it lighter in the back. I liked adding people and a doggy. Of course, I'm a dog person, so I like to put dogs in there, even though they were not there. But it does give the impression of the correct sizing of the boats. One of them was rather large. Now, when I saw this, I liked the reflections of the trees. I did like the diamond shape of that tree and its reflection, which is what caught my attention to begin with. But there was something that wasn't completely right on the right end and especially on the pier. So that's what I started working on in a later stage. First of all, on that tree line, I actually pushed back a little bit with more blue in the back and created sort of a 2-level trees in the very back. Then I really was very daring because I just used pure Indian yellow with titanium white and horizontal brush strokes to make that really pop out and create more contrast. Using the same color, I did negative painting to shape those trees on the pier on the right. So now you can actually see the end of the pier, you can see the back. I think it just brings the rest of the painting with a better balance, with a very dark shape on the left and smaller but lighter, brighter on the right, produces, I think, a good balance overall and brings the focal point of the boats and the reflections on the water in with a better composition and framing. I also put the lights on the people and the little boy and the doggy on the pier, I also worked a bit better on the shapes of these boats because I didn't think they were reading correctly. And I think now they read better in terms of what they are, what we are seeing. And then, working on the water is always fun. I added a bit more depth, a bit more of water movement in there. And I also refined the reflection of the pier, which was way too dark in the original. And voila, I really like the final painting. It's a 9 by 12 plein air painting that was really fun and not really very difficult to do. So get on painting. Go even if it's a rainy day. You can always find shelter, wait for the rain to pass, and then do your quick sketches and enjoy.